Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yahe Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopiyana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Devata Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Jagana Jaya Jagana Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jagana Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jagana Jaya Jagana Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jaya Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Sri Radhe. Jaya Radha Vallabha Radha Vallabha Sri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthara Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Hare Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotaman Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayan Udhirajet Nasta Prayesva Vadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamai Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistikim. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for being here in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam class. Today we will continue the reading of 6th canto, chapter 15. Narada and Angira instructs King Chitraketu. Today is text 7. So we are having the board. On the board, so if you can please repeat. Dehena dehino rajam dehan deho vijayate vijat evajata bijam dehi arta ivashashvata. Thank you. Dehena dehino rajam dehan deho vijayate vijat evajata vijam dehyanta iva sashvata. Dehena dehino rajam deha deho vijayate vijat evajata vijam Dehi artha iva shashvata. Would you like to read? Dehina dehino rajan. Deha deho vijayate. Vija eva jata vijam. Dehi artha iva shashvata. Dehina dehino rajan. Deha dejo vijayate. Vijadeva jata vijam. Dehi artha iva shashvata. Okay, thank you. We can repeat word by word. Dehina, by the body. Dehinaha, of the father possessing a material body. Rajan, O king. Dehat, from the body of the mother. Dehat, another body. Abhijayate, takes birth. Vijat, from one seed. Eva, indeed. Yata, just as. Vijam, another seed. Dehi, a person who has accepted a material body. Artha, the material elements. Eva, like. Shashvata, eternal. Translation. As from one seed another seed is generated, O king, so from one body, the body of the father, through another body, the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of the son, of a son. As the elements of material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. Purpose. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that there are two energies, namely the superior energy and inferior energy. Inferior energy consists of the 5 gross and 3 subtle material elements. The living entity who represents the superior energy appears in a different type of bodies, through these elements by the manipulation or supervision of the material energy. Actually, both the material and spiritual energies, matter and spirit, exist eternally as potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The potent entity is the Supreme Person, since the spiritual energy, the living beings, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, desires to enjoy this material world. The Lord gives him a chance to accept different types of material bodies and enjoy or suffer in different material conditions. Factually, the spiritual energy, the living entity, who desires to enjoy material things, is manipulated by the Supreme Lord. The so-called father and mother have nothing to do with the living entity. As a result of his own choice and karma, the living entity takes different bodies through the agency of the so-called father and mother. Onangyanati Mirandaja, Gyanangyana Salakaya, Chakshurunamitanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukankaroti Vatsalam Fangunlangajate Girin, Jat Kripata Maham Bande Sri Guru Dinatarinam, Paramananda Vardanan, Sri Chaitanya Ishwaran. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutade, Srimate Siddhahanama Presak Swami iti namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutade. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gora Vani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunjavadi Paschatya Desatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Panchakalpataruyascha kripa sindhuvya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai. Well, it's quite interesting, this part of this chapter, the story of Chitraketu Maharaj. And as we all know, what is happening at this point? Somebody can recollect what is happening? Yeah, the sages are instructing Chitraketu. Why they are instructing? Yeah, he got his son is dead, and he's lamenting, and he's quite overwhelmed with the loss, and he's experiencing a lot of pain. And in his pain also, his pain is expressed in a very deep manner. I think all of us, in one way, we can relate to that. Do you think? Perhaps we didn't, well, at least in this lifetime, I didn't have any son who died. But the loss of something very precious for us, in some way, we can, we experience pain for that. So different people in different degrees can relate to this story. Of course, Bhagavatam is presenting us stories that accommodate everybody. It said that all the possible psychological state of mind are described in Bhagavatam. All the possibilities, all the options. So in that way, all of us, we can say, oh yes, something is related to me. Oh, I can relate to that. So Bhagavatam is relevant to our reality, to what we experience. So all the possible psychological state of mind is described in Bhagavatam. And at this moment, at this point, we can see how the pain of losing something so precious to us can create bewilderment. We can become bewildered, and so overcome with pain and suffering. Even we forget all our possible knowledge about the spirituality. Our mind gets blocked and is out of grief. Even we experience different emotions. Do you think that is wrong? What do you think? It's wrong to feel pain, to feel grievance when we lose something? It is something wrong? It's natural? Yeah, it's part of human experience. Yes. Yes, actually, it is natural experience. Sometimes we have that misconception, we shouldn't feel pain or we shouldn't grieve for something that we lost. But the point basically is how we grieve. In case, for example, at this point, Chitraketu Maharaj is experiencing the pain of losing his son. Imagine, the son is something very precious, and his only son. So he's experiencing a lot of pain, but it's too overwhelmed for him. So that in that point, when it's too extreme, some agency, some arrangement, Krishna's arrangement has to take place, and in this case, the sages are helping him to recover his common sense in one sense, if we can say. So it's needed because the grief that he's experiencing, the mourning that he's having is too extreme. So it doesn't mean that we should not experience pain, but also it's too extreme in a way that we lose compose, we lose sense what we are doing, we neglect our duties, everything. In the case of Chitraketu Maharaj, he is a king. So by neglecting his duties, a lot of people get disturbed. So we have also to maintain a balance in that way. So for that reason, Krishna arranged the help, a special help for him. So in this case, the help comes from the sages, Narada and Angira Muni. And how they help him, do you remember the previous text, what they are telling him? Very basic points in our philosophy. One of the main important things that from the very beginning when we come to Krishna consciousness, everybody is telling us. Do you remember what is the basic of our philosophy? We are not the body. We are a spiritual soul. So that's quite important. The emphasis goes there. And that is the first instruction of the rishis, Angira Muni and Narada Muni, are telling Chitraketu Maharaj. We are spiritual souls. We are not the body. And to help him to understand that also, the question to him is, what actually you are mourning for? Because the body of your son is here. So what you are crying for? The body is there. Your relationship is with the body or with the soul. And if it's with the soul, your relationship is, you are the father, or what kind of relationship you are mourning for. And it's quite challenging for the mind. Oops, like a shaking. Yeah, my son body is here. Wow. Yeah, but it is my relationship based in the body or is the soul. And if my relationship is with the soul, it means I am the father and the soul, that soul is my son. Is that true? What do you think? Not actually, because if we realize that, okay, my relationship is not with that body, that dead body, my relationship is with the soul that is in that body, so it's true if I say that I'm the father of that soul, or I'm the mother, or I'm the son of that soul, or I'm the sister or the brother. Is true that relationship we are talking about with the spiritual soul. So that false conception, that false understanding, or that kind of relationship, if we think we have, that is not permanent. That is not true. Because as our spiritual souls, we share different nature with different relationships. What is the relationship that we all share as our spiritual souls? We have the same Father, who is? Krishna. Yeah, it said that, and it's also part of the basic of our philosophy. When we're trying to understand who we are, we say, okay, we are spiritual souls. But what else? So we are part and parcel of Krishna. So for that reason, we are like everybody, we share the same origin, we have the same Father. So we are all brothers and sisters, in that sense, yeah, as spiritual souls, yes. So that is eternal relationship that all of us we have. And it's said in that way, if we understand that aspect, the way how we interact, we should interact each other would be like assisting each other in growing in that relationship with God. So that way we can take responsibilities, we can, if, for example, due to some circumstances, because it said that one of the teachings of the sages to Chitraketu Maharaj is that the temporary situation or circumstance that the living entity is right now is arranged by the Lord directly. So, and this is not that we are the controller or we are doing things or trying to achieve things. It's basically Krishna directly arranging the circumstance for us. It means also the relationship that we have to share in this lifespan. So also, it's directly organized by Krishna. If we understand that point, so it means, okay, so if Krishna is orchestrating, arranging this for me, what is my duty in that regard? Is reciprocating or trying to understand the purpose of that circumstance to grow or at least to foster my relationship with Krishna, because he is arranging the things, so he's behind every aspect. Another point that the sages also emphasize is that part of our philosophy is that everything is connected with Krishna. The source of everything is Krishna, and he has different energies. And us, as spiritual souls, we are part of one of his energies. And all the material creation, the elements of material creation, in this case, especially mentioned in this verse, it's that also part of his eternal energy of the Lord. Those elements are eternal. The way how our shape, the shape of those elements are temporary, but the elements at energy, those are eternal, as are the spiritual soul. So that is the point that is emphasized right now here. And I was also trying to relate also what we can talk today in this regard, because it's part of our philosophy that, as we mentioned before, from the very beginning, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we always hear that it's very strongly emphasized we are spiritual souls, we have a material body. So the relationship that we have between our relatives or friends is temporary. We should not seek or shelter or expecting eternal results from that, but we should act with responsibility. So as a practicing devotees, because we didn't reach that point yet that, I'll fully self-realize, understanding that I'm a spiritual soul, at least in my case, not yet. I know that I have body. I know theoretically that I am a spiritual soul, but I'm still struggling in my process of realization, that I'm still sometimes being affected when my body is paining or hungry, or I'm experiencing some, in my interaction with others, sometimes the mind can get some attached to some aspects. I'm still struggling dealing with those elements as a practicing devotee. This is theoretically for me that I'm a spiritual soul, but I didn't realize yet that I'm a spiritual soul. So I guess, like me, many of us, many of devotees here, and in that process, as part of the explanation also in the Shastras, this is a gradual process. So how can we apply this knowledge in our daily life activities? Because as we said in the beginning, all of us, in some degrees or another, in some ways, we experience that pain of losing something. Perhaps relatives, perhaps even job or something, or some object that is very precious to us, or our health. So we experience loss in some degrees. And the Bhagavatam also acknowledged that in the stories that we hear, for example, when Arjuna, in the battle of Kurukshetra, lost Abhimanyu was killed. So how Arjuna reacted? Arjuna was already kind of applying all the instructions of Krishna. Krishna gave him, Bhagavad Gita was over. Krishna gave all the instructions, and Arjuna, full convinced, starting the fighting, and he was doing so well. So he was fully, I would say, present in his transcendental position as a spiritual soul. And then suddenly his son, Abhimanyu, was killed. And Arjuna, in that platform of pure devotional service, how he reacted, do you remember? He was, okay, no, I'm in the transcendence. We are all spiritual souls. I'll continue fighting. That was his act, his reaction? No. Arjuna was devastated. He didn't want to fight. He was crying, and a lot of pain. And do you think Krishna at that time said, what happened with you, Arjuna? We are spiritual souls. Why are you lamenting? That was Krishna's reaction? No. He gave the space for the process of mourning and the grief. So after giving time to that, Arjuna recovered himself, association of devotees. He lamented and recovered, and then he started again the fighting. But he took time to respect the grievance that he experienced. So in that way, I thought perhaps we can study a little bit how, as a devotees, as a practicing devotees, we can understand the process of grieving. Because we all have that experience of losing something. And we don't want to go to the extreme, like in the case we can see here, Chitraketu Maharaj, he was very much overwhelmed with the pain of losing his son. But also in our case, in different degrees, we experience that overwhelming situation when we lose something. But as a devotees, it's said that if we respect and honor the moment as a Krishna's arrangements, that's the point that I wanted to emphasize, how the sages very nicely explained to Chitraketu Maharaj that this is arranged by the Lord. Everything that is happening, that all of us that we are experiencing, is directly arranged by the Lord. And before also we mentioned that not everything that happened to us is good, but everything that happened is for good. It's something very important point, and Krishna always will act as an overworld wisher in that way, arranging everything for us for good. That conviction, that's also very important point that as a practicing devotees, we need to gradually assimilate in our life, in our consciousness, the different states of surrender. Good. So when we accept what is favorable, what is not favorable for our spiritual practice, when we understand that Krishna is the only protector, this is the only shelter, and everything has a purpose, and with humility we surrender. That's also a very important point, understanding that Krishna is behind and everything for our good. So in that way, for example, devotees, we should understand that that grievance, that grief that we experience has also different stage. In psychology, for example, they acknowledge 5 stages of grievance. In the beginning, for example, when we lose something, it's like a shock, because sometimes we don't want to accept what's happening, especially when somebody is dying, or we hear the news that, oh, my parents or son is somebody very dear to us is dying or is dead, and we weren't there. What is the first reaction that the mind has is, we deny it, we try, no, perhaps it's somebody else and they confused with the name. No, it's, perhaps they didn't check properly. The doctor, please give 5 minutes more or check again. So the mind trying to resist to that. It's the resistance to accept. That's called denial. And if we can say, for example, when we lose something, and also say, no, perhaps I misplaced, no, or perhaps I'm confused. We try to find ways to not accept what is happening. And then after that, it's like you become angry, or the experience of anger is overwhelming also there. Because you become angry not just perhaps to the situation, but even if somebody died, your very dear one, so you become even angry to that person. Why you leave me? Why you gone? You should be here. And so the anger is there. But after some time, we experience, or it's said that the experience is more like a bargain, or you feel guilty. Like talking with God, say, please, perhaps you should take me and not that person, or if I do austerities, please you do something for this person, or trying to bargain, trying to adjust things because we are not accepting the laws. Then at the end, gradually take place like a depression, you are just trying to accept what's happening, but still some depression, some emotions that you experience sadness. That takes time. At the end, with the help of, in association of devotees, hopefully, we tend to accept the situation, acceptance. And in the process of acceptance also comes the uplifting of consciousness, because we take lessons, we learn something, that's something very deep for us that help us or help to going on in life, continue moving on in life. But it's a gradual process and it's individual. It's not always happen the same sequence for everybody. And we can see this in our, for example, here for our Chitraketu Maharaj. And this stage of grievance that is described in psychology is clearly described also in the Bhagavatam. When we were talking about Arjuna or the pastime here, Chitraketu Maharaj, in the beginning he didn't want to accept, he was angry. Even the wife of the queen, she was angry, even angry against Krishna. Say, if you are the controller, so you are unjust, this is not proper. Why are you doing this? So you are finding happiness by making us suffer. So she was expressing the anger in that way as well. All these emotions are described in the Bhagavatam as part of the psychological state of consciousness that we all, in some way or another, we can relate and learn from that too. Yeah, so these points I thought it would be nice if we can discuss a bit, if you consider this important. Do you think that what we are talking right now makes sense or can be related to our personal experience and we can grow from there, or we can apply it and help each other perhaps, because this is a daily life experience for all of us in this material world, that laws will be there, and how we can face that, and especially as a practicing devotees. It's not, it would be unfair and no appropriate to say when somebody or some devotees are experiencing difficult times to say, well, it's the karma, we are not this body, we are a spiritual soul, you should not lament, we should not lament. So shake up, just realize that you're a spiritual soul that keeps moving, move. So do you think that would be appropriate, or we should give space and assist each other that eventually the devotee in this case will come out from there and more in a healthy manner? So we need to understand these points also, especially as a practicing devotees, because prematurely sometimes we take those kind of attitudes when say we are a spiritual soul and we are not a body, so neglect emotions, and we hurt each other. We hurt ourselves and others as well. Well, any comment, any questions on this point? Yes, Prabhuji.
We have to accept whatever Lord's decision. Lord's decision, we have to accept.
That's right.
Whether we like it or not.
That's right, acceptance. Yeah. Takes time to accept, not to reach that point, takes time. Yeah. Yeah. And we have to accept and help each other for that. Yes.
And remembering more.
Remembering more. Yeah. That's a good point, Prabhu. What can help us to reach that point of acceptance and in a healthy manner? No, you said that's something important, remembering more. What we have to remember?
Have more relationship with Him.
With Krishna.
We get closer to Him.
Yeah, that's right. And that is, for that reason, is the association of devotees very important, because it's only in the association of devotees with loving care that we can remember or help regain that state of consciousness.
More chanting.
More chanting, yeah. When you are on pain, sometimes I'm telling you, Prabhu, I don't like to chant. My mind is so difficult. I remember when I got the experience with my arm, I was in pain. I wasn't able even to chant hold my japa and chanting. But it helped a lot with hearing, listening lectures and some classes that at the end gives you the motivation to chant and take up the process again. Any comment on the other questions? Would you like to say something, Prabhu?
The point you made on the Abhimanyu and Arjuna is quite relevant in many of our practically everybody goes through that. Right?
Yeah.
One day or another, we may face some relatives or somebody is going to just pass away. There may be a natural cause, there may be something other ways, or accidents, or so in those situations, as you said, it's Krishna didn't say, okay, you're not the spirit soul. You're the spirit soul, and you just don't express your emotion. That is natural for us to express sadness, empathy, so. And you rightly pointed out that time, that kind of heals them. You have to overcome. It's not that you just completely it's morose and be in that state or whatever. If that's probably not practical. But you have to come out and then you have to again say, okay, I'm now. Yes, I have to live. Ultimately, I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm a spirit soul. I have to continue serving. And that is my relationship.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. That's the important point, that understanding what is my relationship with Krishna and what should I do. After the acceptance of that loss and coming out from there, a lesson that we have to learn and perhaps nourish our understanding, our purification process too. In association of devotees, that is the good fortune, I would say, and that we somehow or another have, that because of the association of devotees, we can be engaged properly. We can have the ideas or even the guidelines, what to do in this case, how to do it, and we naturally engage in that process because association of devotees. Otherwise, by our own, after losing something, so especially so painful experience, it's hard by our own, at least in my personal case. By my own conviction, it's hard. But if I have the association of devotees, or hearing or listening classes, or the books, that just gives us the push and the guidance, the direction, where to go, how to go. John, would you like to say something?
I'd like to say a lot of things, but I wouldn't know where to start. It's very easy to give advice from a comfortable position.
That's very good.
And that's very easy. I think everybody has to find their own truth. But what my truth is this morning at 8:30 might be different from 5:30 in the evening. And that's the way, that's the tides that I go through in my own life.
Yeah.
And I don't pray very much for myself, to be honest. But and the reason is because if I was disappointed, I don't want to have a conflict with God. However, that wouldn't stop me from praying for other people.
Yeah.
And I find God in other people. I can see it in their eyes and I feel it in their movement. And sometimes I just sit quietly and see people doing good things, and that's when I have a connection closest to God. I don't try to analyse too much because I'm analytical, but even saying that is a paradox because I always am. I'm always trying to find a situation to answer my own questions, but at times I just have to be neutral and just allow for things to happen. But I can sit down and think all I want, or just hope things get better and such. But he who lives in hope will die in despair. God can move a mountain, but bring a bucket, a spade, and a pick. You have to make an effort yourself. But I see an example of others. Sometimes I feel very small myself. Just tiny little things. I've been here in this class before when somebody said I don't feel elated when I stand in front of the temple and I chant and I don't feel anything, and the person was admonished. And the person, I could see a tear run down her face, and I thought, no, entirely the opposite, because there's God itself. Because to feel something so strongly, to bring into a tear, because you're searching and you can't find, but you don't stop, that's an act of God.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's very simple to say I'm not the body when you're in a comfortable situation. If I take a hammer and hit my fingernail as hard as I can, then I'll try to tell you I'm not the body. It won't work.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong process. So, I don't know. I always recall as a child I always had a conscious contact with God. And many times in my life I thought I could do a better job than God because my way would be better. And I didn't understand it at all, so I had to find different understandings. I had to look at people and say, well, how can God punish the world so much and suffer, make all these people suffer and such? I came to my own conclusion that God decided that maybe there was something better on the other side, and that was his choice that we can't understand.
That's right. Yeah.
So, when I say I don't know, the older and more I know, the less I know. So that sort of almost keeps me eternally young. Because every morning I wake up, I'm not sure what's going to happen, to be honest. And pain and suffering only brings me closer to God.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we need to appreciate, understanding, change our perspective also, how we take when we have to experience pain and suffering, because it's part of the package of being in this material world. All of us, we will experience suffering and also happiness in some degrees. But if we see as you said, as even arrangement that Krishna arranging those things for us, so our appreciation of how we face those difficult times, it's different when we don't understand who is behind Krishna or the purpose of those suffering as well. Everything has a purpose and connection. Thank you for your comment, John. Yeah. Would you like to say something, Prabhuji? What about you, Prabhu? Bhaktasaka, you are attending the classes, and at this point, do you think it's relevant about what is happening with Chitraketu Maharaj? It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting if we remember the previous chapter about Vritasura, because we understand that Chitraketu Maharaj is actually a Vritasura, that in his next birth is a Vritasura. He appeared in the body of a demon, but the consciousness is a bit different, evolving process in the consciousness of Chitraketu Maharaj, and the importance to understand the identity, the soul, and the connection, because we will after read how after the instruction of Angira Muni and Narada, kind of Chitraketu Maharaj recovered consciousness, and he present himself, or he's more properly situated in knowledge and inquire more, such a point that even Krishna appeared to him. He will have darshan of Krishna. And that's quite interesting. And then after, his next birth would be a demon, Chitraketu Maharaj. Vritasura. And his last birth, and then he will go back to Godhead, where Sankarshan lives. Yes, bro.
So when he got the darshan of Sankarshan, he must have had such a strong desire to see the Lord.
Yeah.
Because I heard he got the darshan instead of name.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. He knows better what is the desire of the living entity, and he reciprocates. Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want God to be real?
Who doesn't want God to...
Who doesn't want God to be real? Even atheists and agnostics and such doesn't look at the heart of it. I found in my life that when sometimes I met people who spoke the sweetest or appeared the kindest, inside their heart was demonic. And yet when I found people who were outwardly spoken and sometimes didn't and appeared rough, they had the softest hearts.
Yeah, yeah. That is the teachings that we have from when we study the pastime of Vritasura. So sometimes we get deceived by external appearance, but the state of consciousness is very important. And we can judge people by external aspects of who is more advanced than other, because it said also only a pure devotee can recognize another pure devotee. And as a practicing devotees, what we owe to all of us is respect and give the opportunity to, well, we can't judge. We are not entitled to judge the consciousness of others.
But some things are obvious. It's like a tree. You judge a tree by the fruit it bears.
Yeah, but
Same with a person.
yes, but the judgment is not like it's basically discrimination in what is favorable and what is not favorable, the attitude of the devotee. Not the judgment as this is bad or this is good.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It depends on what the fruit is, what you see.
Mm.
I mean, fruit can be different things in different eyes.
For that reason, we use the word what is favorable and what is not favorable. Instead, good or bad. What is favorable and what is not favorable.
Sometimes what falls from a person's lips is all that matters.
Sometimes, you say?
Sometimes what falls from a person's lips is all that matters.
Depends, I would say. For example, in this case, we need to understand, for example, who we are hearing from or what we are hearing from to get value. When you said, for example, sometimes what falls from a person's lips is all what matter. In this case, from Narada and Angira Muni, I would say that is applicable for us as a teachings, as a lessons to learn. It's that related to what you said. That's the way how I'm taking what your comment.
Sometimes it's not so important what you put in your mouth, more important what comes out of it.
Got your point. It's Jesus, one of the Jesus' instructions to his disciples. Yeah.
There's a lot, I've always found since coming here many similarities between the Bible and Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam.
Yeah. In this case, for example, for all of us, it's more like as a practicing devotees, we have a process to follow. And so in that way, we have different instructions what to do, what not to do, as a practicing devotees. After being successful in our sadhana, we call sadhana bhakti. Then after, for example, the Raganuga bhakti, that can be another way to practice devotional service in a high level without being, I would say, care much about rules and regulations. But as a practicing devotees, for us, it's very important to be very much focused in what we should do, what we should not do. We call that sadhana bhakti, in order to train our mind and consciousness. And we also understand that it's not the only way. Of course, there are different levels. But that's another point that perhaps in another time we can discuss. Okay, any other comment, question?
I just wanted to say, it's so amazing because you see like the whole progression of this soul in different bodies going through different situations, all the way up to where you become the true devotee. It's like really nice to hear the stories, different things that have happened to the soul that led him back on the path back to Krishna.
That's right. That is very nice. Yeah, that's the strategy of the teachings of Bhagavatam, giving us that big picture. Because if we focus only in one lifetime, kind of, that is our perception, perhaps it's not so much related for us, but it's so important to see the big picture, as you said, the progressive evolving process of the living entity state of consciousness, the big picture. So it's giving us more knowledge as well. Because it's very hard to understand about, for example, the transmigration of the soul. Because of the Shastras, we know that this is factual. Because as you mentioned, the story, different lifetimes. Yeah, we can remember our previous lives, so we can doubt about it, or perhaps doesn't exist. But because we have full faith in the teachings of the Shastras, and the Shastras clearly explain that progressive path, so that implies many lifetimes. So that is a factual knowledge for us. Yeah. Any other comment? Question? Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your comment. Jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Panchakalpataroyascha kripa sindhuvyacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.